It's Bob Costas, Hall of Fame broadcaster at Major League Baseball Network, NBC Sports. Got to spend a lot of time with Bob last night. Seems like it was only a couple hours ago that we parted.
Because it was. But
Yes.
wait, you guys are going to actually be the various brats, Italians, and whatever
Yeah.
sausages at Miller Park?
Yeah.
Oh, this is incredible.
Yeah,
this is incredible.
We're going to let you see how the sausage is made.
So to speak.
Yes.
On a very hot summer night, whether it be inside the bratwurst or inside the suit of the Philly fanatic, you get into July or August. I'm guessing that is not exactly like being at the Fleur de Lis.
Well, I'm bringing the Danettes in. I'm worried about Fritzy if he's going to make it through the race.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, we thought we'd go in and I would like for you to call that race if you could.
Well, Euchre's there.
Yeah.
I think you ought to throw a mic around Uke, see what Mr. Baseball has to say. But I'll tell you this: a few years ago, there's this explosion in sabermetrics. There's a stat for everything. The single best baseball statistic I've been able to cite on the air in the last several years, 2 or 3 years ago, the 8th inning of a Brewers game, and I find out that the Brewers are 15-3 when the Italian wins the sausage race. And from there, I knew they had the game locked.
We talked about this last night with sabermetrics. I'm not a sabermetrics guy. I like watching a game, enjoying a game.
Mm-hmm.
But have we gone as far as we can go with sabermetrics, or do you see that this is just the start of sabermetrics?
I don't think we've gone nearly as far as we can go, and I like reading about sabermetrics. I like some of the conclusions that sabermetrics lead you to, and then I think it's the broadcaster's responsibility to break that down in more general terms. But if you start getting bogged down, I think, in too many graphics, too many numbers, even if those numbers are valid, even if the managers and general managers are using those numbers to good effect to assemble a team or make in-game decisions, if that bogs the broadcast down too much, then you're getting away from just the appeal of the game that draws a majority of people in. I think sabermetrics is valid. Do I agree with every bit of it? And do I think that it supersedes every bit of traditional baseball knowledge? Of course not. I think the two have to be kind of melded together. But I think as a broadcaster, you got to be careful, no matter what the sport is, how you use statistics. Even in football, every Sunday night, we get tremendous information from the Elias Sports Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at 20 notes from the Elias Sports Bureau, you can't use 17 or 18 of them because it would take too long to explain what they're about, and by that time they would have run 3 plays.
Could Vin Scully work now if he's 33 years of age trying to do this?
Well, Vin Scully has a unique talent. He's clearly the greatest baseball broadcaster ever. He's perhaps better at his particular specialty than anyone has ever been. Plus, he was a very good football announcer and golf announcer when he chose to do those sports. So there's always a place for surpassing talent. But one of the reasons why it couldn't be exactly the same is that the long-standing announcers, Chick Hearn for so long with the Lakers, Jack Buck with the Cardinals, Ernie Harwell with the Tigers, and Vin is almost the last of that breed. The long-standing broadcasters, their work is simultaneously nostalgic and present. It's a news bulletin and a flashback simultaneously. So the listener, even the young listener, grew up with that broadcaster and the connection to that team. And so it would just be almost impossible in a world where you're being bombarded from every direction to have the kind of connection that people have to Vin Scully, which started with radio and then blended into television. You just couldn't recreate the circumstances. The talent would still be there for sure, but the context would change.
We also talked a lot about broadcasting last night on the flight home of where we are, where we were, and where we're going. What do you think the industry is going to look like 10 years from now, whether it's newspapers, blogs, broadcasting, anything else that you want to add to that?
I can't say for sure what it will look like, but what I've long said, what I hope for is this. What the established media should do is take their standards of quality and their standards of ethics, for lack of a better term, and bring it to the new technology, not surrender to the least common denominator of the new technology. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood here, as often happens. There are tremendously talented bloggers who not only write well, but who often uncover stories or come up with angles and takes on situations that you might not find in the mainstream media. And so that's a plus. But as you know, anytime you open the doors, it's like if you let everyone audition for American Idol, you're going to have a lot more people who can't hit a single note than you're going to find diamonds in the rough. And that, taken as a whole, is what the Internet is. Most of it is not of a level of quality and a level of insight and a level of responsibility and accountability that even the average newspaper or magazine or established broadcast outlet would claim. And so what the established media has to do is recognize it doesn't really matter ultimately that Bob Costas and Dan Patrick might, because of when we grew up, prefer to have a cup of coffee and hold a newspaper in our hand. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're reading on a tablet or some device that within 10 years they're going to put in your thumbnail. It doesn't matter. What matters, though, is the quality and the credibility of it. And I think in the rush just to not be overtaken by the new technology and all the stresses on the newspaper industry especially, I think a lot of times the mainstream media is sacrificing its own standards when it shouldn't.
Talking to Bob Costas, NBC Sports. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about the Tim Tebow situation with the Patriots. Our fascination with Tebow, more so perhaps as a person than a football player, but now the Patriots are on the clock with Tim Tebow. Is this more about the Patriots and Bill Belichick, or is it more about Tim Tebow?
Well, I think you got it right at the top of the show, although everyone's going to be fascinated with Tebow for one reason or another, and it's partly about him. It is more about Belichick. If anyone can figure out a way to make use of Tim Tebow, it'll be him. But your other point I thought was really well taken. If Tim Tebow does not prove useful to the Patriots, if the Patriots after a year or two say, that's it, goodbye to Tim Tebow, then he is either done as a football player or he's headed for Canada or the Arena League or something, because the league as a whole will say, if Belichick couldn't find a use for him, none of the rest of us will be able to.
What'd you think of the Danettes' behavior last night?
I thought they were generally well behaved. I would like to say, based on my vantage point, as I looked toward you at the podium and sat next to your wife, Sue, and Mark Lazarus, Paulie's back was to me. And I was the first in the entire room to stand and applaud, because I felt I owed it to you after all the angst and anxiety you've associated with me through the years. And you know, I should actually charge you for a therapy session there on the plane. I should have had the clock ticking for 45 minutes. You should owe me about $500 now, but
wow.
leave that part aside. Wow. I stood up first. Hundreds of people in the room. I stood up first. The last to stand, not just at our table, but in the entire room, was Paulie.
Wow, Paulie. Yeah, Paulie.
He's absolutely right. I had my back to everyone. I didn't see everybody standing up. I heard noise. I look, and Bob was the first person in the room to stand up, and I realized I'm last.
I thought my obligation was to start a standing ovation for Dan Patrick. Would it have happened eventually? Yes. But did it happen sooner because of me? Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Bob. Once again, just giving back.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the conversation last night.
You got it. Congratulations.
All right.
It was a great night.
Bob Costas, NBC Sports. Paulie. Paulie, you're sweating.
Full sweat.
Everybody in the room stands up, which was nice. And I didn't realize you were the last guy to stand up. Did you look around and go, oh, everybody's standing up?
Yes, I was at the frontmost seat, so I couldn't see what was going on behind me. And then I heard all the chairs moving. I looked back. I see the entire room's up.
Well, you didn't want to be the guy who stands up and then everybody else is seated. So you'd be up there going like this. Yeah, that wouldn't be good.